something is seriously wrong, and you can feel it. Over 60% of Americans now say they feel emotionally numb. Not sad, not angry, just empty. This isn't burnout. This isn't depression. This is something deeper. Suicide is now a leading cause of death for people under 45. Antidepressant use has doubled in 2 decades. Workforce engagement is at the lowest level ever recorded. People aren't dreaming anymore. They're surviving. If you've noticed you don't look forward to things the way you used to, if life feels flat, repetitive, unreal, you're not alone and you're not imagining it. Millions of Americans are quietly losing interest in everything, and almost nobody is talking about why. Today, we're going to talk about it starting with the truths most people aren't ready to hear. You're not just tired anymore. Let's be real, this isn't just burnout. This is something deeper. This is emotional malnutrition. You go to sleep exhausted, wake up exhausted, and it's not because you're not getting enough sleep, it's because nothing in your life is feeding your spirit anymore. Every part of modern American life is extraction-based. Your job, your apps, your relationships, even your downtime, it all feels like it's pulling something from you instead of giving something back. And that's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. According to a 2023 Gallup poll, nearly 60% of Americans now report feeling emotionally detached at work. That's not apathy, that's starvation. People are running on fumes, not because they're lazy or weak, but because the well is dry. We've replaced real joy with performance metrics, replaced human connection with content, replaced rest with productivity hacks. And now people don't even know what fulfillment feels like anymore. It's not that Americans don't care, it's that they've spent years being forced to care about all the wrong things. Likes, followers, performance reviews, bills, how to look successful without being allowed to feel successful. That's not life. That's survival. And you know what happens when people are deprived of emotional nutrition for too long? They check out. Quiet quitting? Yes. But also silent grieving for the version of themselves they were never allowed to become. This isn't a sleep issue, or a mental health trend, or even a cultural vibe. This is a generation-wide deficiency of meaning. The system doesn't feed you, it feeds off you. And millions of Americans are walking around hungry for something they can't even name anymore. Joy feels distant. Purpose feels ridiculous. Hope feels naive. This is emotional malnutrition, and you can't fix it with a vacation. You fix it by refusing to participate in systems that keep you starved. People aren't just tired, they are depleted. And unless we start rebuilding lives that include beauty, stillness, purpose, and enoughness, we're going to keep seeing this quiet collapse of interest. Not just in work or politics, but in everything. You're not broken, you're underfed. And the soul cannot run on fumes forever. What if nobody wants the American life anymore? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What if people are losing interest in life not because they're depressed, but because the version of life being offered to them isn't worth living anymore? Think about it. How many people do you know who are excited about the 9-to-5 grind, drowning in subscriptions, buried in debt, commuting through traffic to afford a home they're never in, raising kids they barely see, just to die early of stress-related diseases? That's not a dream. That's a slow-moving panic attack with a mortgage. The Census Bureau reported that U.S. life satisfaction has dropped for 3 straight years, and nearly 70% of adults under 40 now say they don't believe the American dream is achievable. But what if the real truth is uglier? What if they don't want it anymore? Because here's the secret no one talks about. You can't sell dreams that don't match the reality people are living in. You can't keep promising success to people who've been working 3 jobs and still can't afford a dentist. And Gen Z sees it. Millennials are exhausted by it. Gen X is disillusioned by it. And even boomers are starting to say, this isn't what I signed up for. We were told to want success. But success is killing us. The rat race is burning us out. The housing market has locked us out. The education system has bankrupted us. And now we're starting to collectively ask, for what? If the prize for following all the rules is a life of anxiety, Debt, disconnection, and quiet despair, maybe it's time to stop playing the game. Maybe Americans aren't losing interest in life. Maybe they're losing interest in a life that feels rigged. And here's the catch. Once people opt out mentally, the physical world starts to crumble too. You see it everywhere. Record numbers of people dropping out of the workforce, millions refusing to date, marry, or have children. Is it apathy or is it clarity? We've seen behind the curtain. We see that normal was never designed for human thriving. And we're tired of pretending we want it. So, if it feels like nobody's excited anymore, maybe it's because they're done pretending this is the life they asked for. Because it's not. And deep down, you know it too. The loneliness epidemic is now the default setting. You ever feel like you're surrounded by people but somehow still completely alone? Yeah, that's not in your head. That's the default now. According to the U.S. Surgeon General's report from mid-2023, over 50% of American adults report feeling seriously lonely on a regular basis. And among young adults, that number jumps to 61%. You want to know what that means? That means that right now, as you're watching this, half the people you know are carrying around a weight of invisible emptiness that they don't even know how to talk about anymore. And it's not just, oh, people don't hang out like they used to. No, it's systemic. This is the result of 20 years of social media replacing community, of neighborhoods turning into economic zones, of families becoming gig workers and strangers. We replaced churches, barbershops, and third spaces with delivery apps and content feeds. We turned friendships into comment sections. And now we wonder why everyone's walking around like ghosts. This isn't a phase, it's a structural collapse of belonging. And it's destroying us. Loneliness literally shortens your lifespan. New data from Harvard and the National Institutes of Health shows chronic loneliness is as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases your risk of dementia by 50%. Heart disease? Up 30%. Depression? That one's obvious. But here's what's not so obvious. People aren't just feeling alone, they're starting to believe they deserve to be alone. That's how deep the conditioning goes. We've internalized disconnection as personality. I'm just introverted now. I like staying in. No, you don't. You've adapted to abandonment. And now, millions of Americans are losing interest in everything, because connection is what makes things feel worth doing. Without it, even joy feels muted. Even wins feel hollow. We weren't made to survive as isolated units. That was a lie sold to us by the productivity cult. And it's killing us slowly. So, yeah, people are checked out. But it's not because they're weak. It's because they've been left out in the cold for too long. If you feel that numbness creeping in, that nothing matters fog, you're not broken. You're lonely. And until we bring back real community, not group chats or followers or Zoom hangouts, but actual human presence, people are going to keep fading from their own lives, one day at a time. The system is designed to keep you numb, not happy. You know what's wild? We were never actually meant to be happy in this system. We were just meant to be numb enough to function, and most of us are finally starting to feel it. That hollow, repetitive feeling, that sense that no matter how much sleep you get, you still wake up like your soul is jet-lagged. That's not a glitch, that's a feature. Because the modern American machine doesn't run on joy, it runs on compliance. And you don't get compliance from people who are emotionally healthy and connected. You get it from people who are too tired to ask questions, too stressed to rebel, and too distracted to notice they've been robbed of a meaningful life. Look at your average day. Wake up tired, scroll the news, get hit with 17 crises before breakfast, go to work for a paycheck that barely covers rent, watch your government argue like reality TV stars while your community falls apart, get stuck in traffic, come home, doom scroll while eating ultra-processed food, then fall asleep to the same algorithm that's mining your attention like a digital gold rush. Repeat. And in between, we're told to practice gratitude, get more sunlight, and use this mindfulness app. It's laughable. You can't meditate your way out of a system designed to distract you from your own humanity. This is not a mental health crisis, it's a mass disassociation. And the longer we stay in it, the harder it gets to remember what real life used to feel like. When's the last time you felt present for something? Like truly alive, not just watching it through a phone screen or worrying about the next bill? When's the last time you laughed so hard your stomach hurt? Or cried in front of someone who actually listened instead of just reacting? The system doesn't want that, because that kind of connection makes you dangerous. It makes you awake. And awake people ask why they're paying $2,400 a month for rent in a shoebox, why healthcare costs more than a car note, and why billionaires are racing to space while our bridges collapse. So yeah, people are losing interest in everything, but maybe it's not because we've changed. Maybe it's because we're finally seeing the system for what it is. And when the veil drops, it's hard to pretend joy lives here anymore. Purpose has been replaced by performance. Here's the truth that keeps more people up at night than they'll ever admit. We don't know what we're doing anymore. We just know we're supposed to keep doing it. Wake up, work, post, hustle, repeat. The goal isn't purpose, it's performance. And it's killing us. Somewhere along the line, we replaced "why am I doing this?" with "how does it look while I'm doing it?" We don't live, we perform life now. Social media didn't create this mindset, but it weaponized it. Every moment is content. Every hobby is a hustle. Every thought gets filtered through, how will this be received? People used to sing for the joy of it. Now we ask, can I monetize this? People used to build things for their community. Now we ask, can I scale this? And in the process, something sacred died. Purpose is supposed to be deeply personal, a guiding star that pulls you forward when things get hard. But performance is about perception. And you can't survive off of applause, because the moment the likes stop coming in, the emptiness sets in, and it's loud. A recent Pew Research Center study found that nearly 70% of Americans under 35 say they feel uncertain or unmotivated about the future, even when things in their life are technically going well. That's the impact of living in a world that rewards optics over meaning. People are exhausted from curating a life that doesn't even feel like theirs. We're all acting every day in a drama that nobody wants to watch. And now we're wondering why the spark is gone. You want to know why millions are losing interest? Because they've been told for 20 years that passion should be productive, that rest is laziness, and that if they're not constantly optimizing, they're wasting time. But you can't live like that forever. You just can't. Eventually, you crash. And when you do, the scariest part isn't the fall, it's realizing you never knew what you actually wanted in the first place. You were too busy performing. So yeah, we're losing interest, because we were never supposed to live like this. The soul doesn't respond to metrics, it responds to meaning. And until we start chasing that again, no amount of productivity hacks will save us. The culture war was a distraction. Real life is the casualty. Let me tell you something no one wants to say out loud. We got played, all of us. Left, right, center, it doesn't matter. While we were fighting each other online about pronouns, celebrities, and made-up culture wars, our actual real lives were being gutted from the inside out. Affordable housing disappeared, wages stagnated, infrastructure rotted, schools crumbled, mental health collapsed, food became poison, the air became flammable, and nobody noticed. Why? Because we were busy arguing about TikTok trends and NFL kneeling, instead of noticing the American middle class was being quietly erased in real time. The culture war wasn't a war, it was a smokescreen. And now the smoke is clearing, and people are looking around saying, wait, what the hell happened to my life? A recent 2024 report showed that over 60% of Americans feel worse off than they did just 5 years ago, despite working more hours and consuming more media than ever before. That's not a coincidence. That's a strategy. If they keep us mad at each other, we'll never look up long enough to realize the ground beneath us is gone. And it's working. We don't trust our neighbors. We don't know our communities. We barely talk to our families. Everything has become political except the things that should be, like the fact that you need a GoFundMe to survive cancer in the wealthiest country in the world, or that your kid's school is falling apart while we spend billions on war machines, or that it costs more to buy groceries than it used to cost to pay rent. These aren't issues, they're emergencies. And no, this isn't just politics, this is your life. And people are losing interest in it because it no longer feels livable. We were told to pick a side, to stay outraged, to never back down, and now we're all just exhausted. Not enlightened, not empowered, just drained. You want to know why you don't care anymore? Because you were trained to fight battles that were never yours while the real war was happening behind your back. And now everything feels pointless. Because in many ways, it was meant to. We don't celebrate anymore. We cope. Remember when birthdays used to mean something? When holidays felt like magic? When weekends felt like freedom instead of just recovery time from the trauma of the week? That's gone now, and nobody wants to admit it, but you can feel it. The joy is missing, the lightness, the anticipation. It's not there anymore. Because in today's America, we don't celebrate, we cope. We throw parties just to feel normal again. We plan vacations just to remember what rest used to feel like. We drink not to toast, but to dull. Even Christmas, even New Year's, these are survival rituals now, not joyful ones. Because how can you genuinely celebrate when your rent went up again, your car note is overdue, your health insurance just doubled, and your job feels like a prison with snacks? The average American hasn't taken a real vacation in over 2 years. And even when they do, over 70% admit to checking work emails daily while relaxing. That's not life. That's captivity. And it bleeds into everything. Weddings now feel like debt traps. Graduations feel like formalities. Birthdays feel like reminders of how behind we are. And you start to realize we're not celebrating milestones anymore. We're marking time like prisoners on a wall. That's why people are losing interest. Because if nothing feels sacred, then nothing feels real. And we were built to celebrate, to gather, to mark the passage of time with meaning, not with dread. But when every celebration becomes a burden, a stressor, a financial landmine, we detach. Slowly, quietly, until even joy feels like work. And the worst part? Most of us think this is normal now. That's just adulthood, they say. No, that's collapse. Emotional, cultural, psychological collapse, dressed up in party decorations. And if we don't reclaim real celebration, not performative, not Instagrammable, but soul-level joy, then this apathy will keep spreading. And we'll forget how to feel anything at all. The future doesn't feel real anymore. Let me ask you something. When's the last time you truly looked forward to the future? Not just hoped things might get better, but actually felt that electric anticipation about where your life was going? For most people right now, the answer is never or not in years. That's the scariest shift no one wants to name out loud. The future has stopped feeling real. It's not a place we're heading toward, it's just a foggy screen we stare into, waiting for the next catastrophe to load. A poll from Axios in 2024 found that over 70% of Americans under 30 say they feel uncertain or hopeless about the next 5 years. But it's not just the young. Retirees are afraid their savings will vanish in the next market swing. Parents are unsure their kids will even have a livable planet by 2050. And millions of working adults are locked into routines that have no upward trajectory, no goal, no light at the end of the tunnel, just bills, burnout, and bad news. And the truth is, we didn't get here overnight. The future was slowly taken from us, replaced with permanent instability. Housing is unaffordable. Climate change is no longer a warning, it's the weather. Jobs are disposable. Education costs 6 figures and offers no guarantee. AI is eating careers faster than humans can retrain. And all the while, we're being told to stay positive, to plan, to save. For what? For a retirement that'll probably vanish? For a starter home that costs more than our parents' lifelong mortgage? Americans used to dream in full color. Now we daydream about basic survival. And that shift from aspiration to anxiety is the soul of this crisis. Because when you can't imagine a future worth living in, your present stops mattering. Hobbies don't feel fun. Work doesn't feel meaningful. Even relationships feel temporary. This isn't depression. It's spiritual suspension. We're floating through time without anchor or destination. And the worst part? Most of us have adjusted. We've normalized this fog, this disconnection, this passive apathy. But it wasn't always like this. We used to believe in tomorrow. Now we just hope it doesn't collapse. That's why we're losing interest. Because the future has become a myth, and living without a future is barely living at all. We don't feel safe. Anywhere. Not anymore. It's hard to care about life when everywhere feels like a threat. And no, I'm not just talking about crime or war or politics. I'm talking about the existential lack of safety that now follows Americans into every space, public, private, digital, financial, emotional. There used to be places you could exhale: home, work, a local cafe, the park, even just your car. Not anymore. Now, every space feels like it's watching you, charging you, judging you, or trying to sell you something. You're not paranoid, you're just aware. You go to the doctor and have to fight to be believed. You go online and get bombarded with violence, trauma, scams, and doom within seconds. You send your kids to school and have to wonder if they'll come back. You take a job and pray your employer won't quietly replace you with AI before your next dental appointment. You try to rent an apartment and end up competing against 70 applicants, offering cash, while your background check takes weeks. And at the core of all this is the same message. You are not safe here. Not financially, not physically, not emotionally. Even sleep doesn't feel safe. Because you can rest, but the world keeps spinning, and you might wake up to a news alert that everything just got worse. Again. And you want to know the most terrifying part? We've adapted to it. We've learned to exist in a constant state of tension, of clenched jaw survival, of checking for exits when we enter a store. A recent American Psychological Association study found that 80% of adults now live with persistent, low-level anxiety that doesn't even register anymore. It's just baseline. That's not normal, but it is American. And it's why people are losing interest, because you cannot bloom where you don't feel safe. Joy needs stillness. Creativity needs security. Intimacy needs trust. And this culture provides none of that. So we retreat, we go silent, we stop showing up, because the world no longer feels like something we get to participate in. It feels like something we're bracing against. And you can only brace for so long before your soul gives out. That's where we are. And until people feel safe again in their bodies, their homes, their communities, nothing will grow. Not love, not ambition, not life, just more numbness. We've forgotten how to be human. This is the root, the final collapse, the deepest wound. We've forgotten how to be human, not workers, not voters, not content creators, not consumers, humans. And you can feel it in every corner of society. We no longer speak from the heart, we speak in buzzwords. We don't touch, we swipe. We don't sit together, we scroll in the same room. We don't build, we order. We don't mourn, we post. We don't feel, we react. And slowly over years, that shift has hollowed us out. Because being human is messy. It's slow, it's sensory, it requires presence, vulnerability, and imperfection. But none of those things are marketable, so they were phased out. Now, we measure our worth by how optimized we are, how much we can produce, how little we can feel while still performing. And the worst part? We've started believing this is an upgrade. That convenience equals progress. That frictionless life equals better life. But look around. We're more medicated, disconnected, suicidal, addicted, anxious, and emotionally frozen than ever before. We're not thriving. We're eroding. And it's not because we're broken, it's because we were trained out of our nature. Community was replaced with competition. Ritual with routine, wonder with productivity, empathy with algorithm. Even grief has been monetized. Weddings, deaths, births, meals, everything sacred has become content or commodity. And now we wonder why life feels fake, why nothing feels worth showing up for. It's because we're not living as humans anymore. We're role-playing in a simulation that was never meant to nourish the soul. That's the final reason people are checking out. Not because they don't care, not because they're lazy or ungrateful, but because deep down, their essence knows this isn't life. This is a performance of life, a flattened, sanitized, digitalized version that leaves no room for mystery, for madness, for magic. And unless we reclaim our humanness, our full, messy, emotional, tactile, interdependent humanness, this crisis of disinterest will keep growing. And it won't be loud, it'll be quiet. A mass extinction of spirit. A generation staring at screens while their hearts go dark. This is where we are. But it doesn't have to be where we stay. We can still remember. We can still return. But only if we want to be human again. You ever wake up and just not care anymore? Like, not sad, not angry, just done. You still go to work, still pay your bills, still smile at people in public. But inside, it's blank, numb, quiet. You're not broken. You're living in a system that's slowly erased the point of life itself. Over 3 million young Americans dropped out of the workforce on purpose. Anxiety meds, up 37% since 2020. Antidepressants, now in 1 out of every 5 purses in America. This isn't burnout, it's a cultural shutdown. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening until it's already too late. Let's talk about why millions of Americans are losing interest in everything fast.